Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey of rebuilding your life? Look no further than the Rebuild Podcast. Join us as we dive deep into conversations that nurture personal and spiritual growth. Through the wisdom of the Word of God and practical applications, we'll guide you towards becoming the best version of yourself. On this podcast, we will delve into a variety of topics and insights, ranging from mental and emotional well-being to personal development and spiritual growth. Together, we'll explore the paths to healing, resilience, and the restoration of inner peace. Subscribe now and let's rebuild our lives together, one uplifting conversation at a time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rebuild Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Romy, and today I'd like to talk about turning disappointment into opportunity. The reason I want to talk about this episode or this particular topic today, I know for a lot of us, we have a lot of things that happen, things that might not go the way that we want them to go. We might have plans for things. We might have expectations and we might not see them unfold as, detailed or as maybe expected. But we also have an opportunity to be able to see what, we can find, or maybe, seeing an opportunity for something even better. I can talk about my own experiences. Being in this realm, if you will, is a great example of that. I was expecting to do something completely different and to find myself here now as a result of, just understanding or looking, at opportunities and accepting certain things. It definitely does something. And so I want to be able to talk about that. Being able to overcome disappointments of, things not happening, and being able to find hope in, an opportunity and finding who we really are. I think that this is something that will really help us in the long run. And I think without, getting too deep into, trying to curse God or to question God or to judge God or to blame God for things not going the way we want them to go. We look at these things as an opportunity to really see how God's will and purpose really works. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and jump right into this thing. And let's talk about turning disappointment into opportunity. And the first thing, as we typically do, we want to acknowledge the pain of disappointment. And as I said, I've had my fair share. I remember, and I have quite a few, and I'll probably give a couple here just to make things a little easy. I remember when I was in high school. I had a plan. I was going to go off to school. I was going to play basketball and possibly get a contract to play basketball overseas. I didn't care where. Well, I'm not going to say I didn't care where, because there were certain places I didn't feel comfortable, but essentially I did want to play overseas, if not be able to work my way into the NBA D-League at the time. It's now the G League, or into, eventually into the NBA. And, the thing about it was, I had a lot of interesting things happen. I went through workouts and was told at one point I couldn't play a certain position. And I get it, it comes with the territory. It is what it is. I've also been told that there's certain things I should just stick to. I've been told that a lot. And the more I would fight with it, the more I would really want to showcase that I could do this thing. And as I got an opportunity to try out for a professional team. I was so looking forward to it. Um, the plans got derailed. I had, everything set up. The job that I was working at the time gave me the day off. I had money to pay for the tryout. I had transportation there. Everything was in line and perfect, and I was excited. And my family had other plans that day, and just kind of derailed everything. And that one moment really kind of hampered an opportunity for me to delve into professional basketball, which was very unfortunate. I did have, I did talk to an agent at one point. I had put out a couple of highlight tapes. I had some game film. I talked with other teams from different places, different leagues around the world. I was really excited about it, but the thing that ended up not happening was me being able to fulfill that dream of becoming a professional basketball player. And I was really upset by it. I was bummed by it. In fact, one of the things that really hurt behind that was, the fact that I really, everybody that knew me knew that was, that was the thing I was looking forward to more than anything. And not being able to have that, and in some cases you have a time limit, and we have other things going on, but not having an opportunity to even set foot in that arena, if you will, it was frustrating. But what ended up happening, changed my life for the greater good. Found myself being able to join the military. I was able to, learn about myself, find out a lot. I was able to see the world. I was able to do a lot. I made a lot of connections in the process. It was a lot of fun, right? And because of that, I was really able to look that disappointment in the face and say to myself, I accept it. I accept that this wasn't going to happen, and I made peace with it. When we talk about, that kind of thing, and I know for some that might seem like not a whole lot, but, I've had other stories quite similar to it that really hurt. But there's a universality of disappointment, and there's a lot of toll that comes with it, and I went through a lot of it. There was a lot of sadness. I was hurt. I was very, very frustrated. I was very sad. I was very angry. I was mad. I was mad at, I was mad at my family. I resented them in some cases for that. Because, this, the plan that was had, it was, it was supposed to be for this specific thing, and it took the entire day. I don't think it should have taken as long as it did, but hey, that was God's will and purpose. Thank you. And I was super frustrated behind it because, I really didn't want to work in blue collar America. I wanted to do something that I enjoyed. I wanted to take it as far as I could take it, and I really wanted to be able to make a name for myself. That was the thing, and whatever it took, I wanted to be able to, at least have that opportunity. And not being able to have that, it was really frustrating, right? But in the grand scheme of things, I think about some of what I've experienced just over the last 15 years, and I'm kind of glad that I really didn't take that on. I know, even now, being 38 years old, it's really hard to imagine, me trying to still play and I have certain pains. I know I'm a lot bigger now, but if I was even smaller, some of the pains that I have now, I can imagine them only being worse, right? Just based on playing in certain places and all of these other things. And, it could be a lot, right? And then I'd still have to go through the process of thinking about life after playing ball. What would I do? And that's kind of, that's kind of where we can talk about Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, right? One, we can understand that, disappointment is going to be a natural part of life. But two, it also, for me, in going through that journey, comes to a realization that the purpose that competitive basketball and that element served, it had run its course. I utilized it for the purpose of being able to go to school, for being able to kind of navigate life on my own, before actually, getting out into the real world. It was like my last little cushion. Because I'll be honest, there's a lot of things that I wasn't prepared for, that, I needed a little extra time for. And so being able to use, school in that regard really kind of helped put things into perspective. I also realized too that as much as I loved playing, and as much as I enjoyed the game, there was getting to that point where, how do I navigate the process of being able to not just play the game, but to still have enjoyment when that same game is what's actually bringing me the problem. I was stuck with that conundrum. For a lot of people, there's a reality that hits when it comes to that. Some guys push through it, and it really affects their mental health. And some guys walk away, and those are the ones that mainstream society might jump down and be like, you walked away from millions of dollars, and how could you, and blah, 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 blah. And the reality is, if you're having those issues or those problems, or if, the game is really, taking a hit to the way that you feel about the game, then how do you keep going? Right? And it's a real thing. We have to understand, again, these things happen, right? You might have wanted to be, and you might wanted to be on Broadway, and you might not have the opportunity. Sometimes we have dreams and aspirations, and we try to balance that with living regular lives, and that could be a compromise. Sometimes we're looking to maybe transition our lives from one element to another, and before we can make the transition, we're put in a really tough spot. You might have to choose between the transition and losing something very important. Sometimes we might find ourselves in a lot of different places like that, right? Again, whatever might not go the way that we want it to go, and we have to learn how to navigate through that process, that disappointment, right? When we talk about disappointment, there are a lot of signs that come with being disappointed, right? Again, we could talk about the hurt and the pains, but how do we allow ourselves to process them in a healthy manner? Right? We have to allow ourselves to be honest and transparent about them, right? There's no point in holding in, there's nothing wrong. Oh, there's nothing wrong. I'm all right. It's okay. It's not a big deal. No, we have to communicate that. No, it was a letdown. It was painful. It was frustrating. Right? And allow the process to be what it needs to be. Right? Sometimes I think, when we in society we push this notion that the process has to work on someone else's time. Now, I'm not saying we need to drag this thing out 40, 50 years, but we do have to allow ourselves to analyze everything necessary to get over whatever we need to in the process. Like I said earlier, I had a bunch of moments like that. My senior year of high school, I was looking forward to going to state in basketball, and we had a really good shot at being able to go. And I wanted to go because I wanted to, realistically, I really wanted to throw it in the class before me space, because they were number one in the state, and they had this really great record, and we had some teammates that were all state, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to go to state, and just rub it in their face that I got to go. You guys were making fun of me because X, Y, and Z, and here I am being able to say that I went. But it didn't happen. Rightfully so, I get it. But in that journey, that loss, that moment when your high school days are basically over, for me, that stuck with me for years. Wishing I could do something different. And I'm talking, like, it affected me to the point that, I played in other leagues. This followed me even through college, where like certain losses or certain things would happen, and I would be reminded of that game. Like, that's how much that really hit me and affected me. As a matter of fact, that loss affected me more than the end of my collegiate career, which, my collegiate career was just atrocious. But going, looking at the way that ended as opposed to the way my high school career ended, it was different. And I'll be honest, it wasn't until I had actually won the first league I participated in the military that I was able to break that. Just to get the feel of being able to win a championship and have a trophy presented and all of that broke, and I never thought about it again. And that was from that point to that championship was about 6 years. So you can imagine, again, walking around with that kind of thing, and I never really talked to anybody about it. So I'm allowing that thing to build and fester, and again, it affected the way that I played. It affected the way that I thought about approaching the game, and I would try my hardest to do whatever I could to not lose, because I didn't want to feel that pain again. That's how bad it was, right? And that's not a healthy way to process through that type of situation, right? If I could take the me now and cryogenically freeze him and send him back in time 20 years, and relive, that particular year, or even the year or two prior, I definitely would have done, I would have allowed myself, even if everything happened the same way, I would have allowed myself the opportunity to just get that off my chest and to be able to make peace with it and let go, right? Because that, also breaks, the ability to, harbor that resentment. You can harbor resentment as a result of that. When we talk about the impact of disappointment on our self-esteem, and this is another one of those things that hurt me in that process, we're talking about, again, doubting what we're capable of doing, that, that puts some things on the map, and having to fight with that. And I'm talking about, at one point I was, working out with guys that ended up playing in the NBA, that have played professionally overseas. And I'm still fighting with, losing, this basketball game. And I'm here in this moment, and I'm trying to embrace the moment and not thinking about where I'm at times. It was rough. And having to adjust to that, and it does. It comes with its territory, but we have to, again, allow ourselves to understand, as Proverbs 24:16 says, a righteous man falleth 7 times and riseth up again, but the wicked shall fall by iniquity. So yes, we're going to have our challenges. We're going to fall. Things aren't going to go the way that we want them to go. But we have to allow ourselves to continue on. But in continuing on, we have to allow ourselves to be honest with where we stand. It's kind of hard to do that if we're trying to take the easy route, or, we're trying to allow things to not fester, or we're trying to pretend like everything isn't okay. Right? And there are moments and times where, we see people kind of relapse on certain things, and you're trying to figure out, how did that happen? It comes as a result of, not dealing with the disappointment, right? Allowing the impact to affect the way that we see ourselves, or how we feel about ourselves, or being motivated. I believe in a couple of episodes ago, I talked about, the body being a temple, and I've gone through weight struggles, and when I went through that the last time, along with some of the other elements that I had going on, going through separation and divorce, and transitioning out of the military, and everything else, I really started to get to a point where I just lost a lot of motivation to do a lot of things. And so, certain habits were able to take off and allow for me to become, as wide as I am, and having to learn how to really pick up motivation again, which I've built up, and now I'm able to say that I'm getting things moving in the right direction. So I'm happy for that, But it comes with that territory, right? And again, it's not until we're able to really healthily process through the disappointment that we're able to get to a point where we can move forward, right? And I think for the way that the way we translate, getting up, I think for a lot of us, we think it's, literally just getting up and just going. And we don't allow ourselves to really expound on what that means or what that looks like. Yes, we fall. Again, things happen. And yes, we rise up again, but in rising up, that involves that process. Right? That involves really looking at and reassessing everything, reflecting on what happened, what went wrong, so we don't make the same mistake. Right? So we don't fall victim and fall 8 times and have to stand up again 9. Right? Because then at that point, it slowly starts to become more insanity than it does, being able to be resilient. Which, we want to be resilient. And in resilience, we're learning how to adjust and adapt to whatever, is happening or has happened. So we don't put ourselves in that kind of a compromise, if you will. Okay. Speaking of, again, we have to learn how to reframe the mindset, right? Finding the lesson in that letdown, right? I'm not going to use the story of Joseph. I love this story, but I'm going to use something different. We think about Job, right? Job is a great example. Here's a guy that, he built this wealth, He had a lot of wealth. And he was a very faithful man. And the enemy came to him and took everything from him, right? In a test to see if he would curse God. You're talking about a man that, really had to deal with this hardship of being on the verge of, all of this pain, having the boils on his body, losing his children. I mean, I don't want to know that pain. Trust me, but right? You're talking about losing all of his wealth. He's left with nothing, right? And he's having to, really allow himself to ride through this hardship and really engage with understanding what's going on with him. Right? It's trying to figure out, what's going on. And of course, he finds out in the end, he was being tested. But he also finds out in that process that, even if God decided, that it was just his will and that was what he wanted to do, just embrace it. It's for a reason. And it opened him up to really understanding and drawing closer to God. And in that, he was able to, accept that God's will is God's will, and I'm going to follow you no matter what. And boom, he's restored everything times two. Right? And with that, that's how we have to refrain our disappointment. Right? We have to look at what happens, the downfalls, the mistakes, the wrongs, the letdowns, the whatever, as an opportunity to learn. What did I not do here that I can do here? What did I learn from in this situation? Or what did I not do in this situation? And a lot of times I think, we think that because we failed or because things didn't go right, we can't learn from them. I had that I had that as a conversation once, and I learned that in some instances, in some situations, I learned that what I did was the wrong thing to do, but because that was the wrong thing to do because of what ended up resulting by the decision I made, if I had made this decision, this would probably have gone better. And then I tell people, hey, this is the decision I made, and this is what happened as a result of that decision. Don't make this decision, make this decision instead. And I would tell this person that I would share that and be transparent and talk about, I talked about I didn't make the right decision. And so I'm using my failure as a means of teaching. And, being introduced to the idea that I had to have a success or overcome something in order to be able to teach a lesson, that again, it put a damper on the way that I looked at things moving forward, because now I'm doubting myself. And the realization is you can teach from successes and from failures, right? So looking at everything as a learning experience, right? If you do something right, what could you do different? What could you do better? If you make a mistake, what could you have done different? Right? What if this was the best decision? How can you make the most of it? Whatever the case may be, right? As long as you're taking an opportunity to reframe whatever happens as an opportunity to grow and to learn and to cultivate and to build something better, you're in a good spot, right? When we talk about, looking at an opportunity for something, like I said, for for me, getting into the idea of being a life coach, or, even being a mentor in that regard, came more so as a result of, I just started having people come to me and talk to me about different things, right? And I can never understand why. Like, why are you guys coming to me? And as we sit down and we navigate through different scenarios and different things, like I said, it would be, I could share, I could learn how to share some stuff. And not only that, it helping them by figuring out what they could do also allowed me to be more transparent. And then I could see where I could assess myself in those moments and see what I did wrong, see what I could do different, see what I could do better. And not feel like I have to be judged or making the wrong decision or making whatever decision I make, and being at peace with whatever happens and learning how to adapt and adjust appropriately, right? And by this, again, creating an avenue for people to be the best version of themselves, because that's what God wants. God wants us to be the best version of ourselves. He wants us to be that not only for the sake of, fulfilling his will and purpose, but because he loves us enough that he knows that the best version of us is going to have a great impact on those around us. Let's say that we do fall. Let's say we do continue to fail. We have, things that we can bring about to help us to bounce back in the face of adversity. We have an opportunity to, build resilience, right, in the face of adversity, right? We also should understand that, if we do fail, again, that getting up, it's a process, right? It's not something that we just get up and just act like nothing happened. No, we have to allow ourselves an opportunity to take care of what we need to take care of. Getting into self-care, being able to take a step back, whatever it is that we utilize to make ourselves feel better. And like I said, for me, when, I came to the realization when I was playing basketball, when basketball started to become the issue or the problem, I had nowhere else to go. And it's not so much I didn't have anywhere else to go because I didn't have another outlet. I didn't have anywhere else to go because I wasn't connected to God at the time. I wanted to be, but being where I was at the time, it just wasn't the same, or it wasn't what I was accustomed to, if you will. I know there's a lot of traditionalism, if you will, in the church. And, with that traditionalism, we expect things to be a certain way. But where I was at the time, there was a lot more, that I wasn't prepared for, that really kind of turned me off from being in the church. And like I said, it left me kind of stuck because where can I go now? I didn't really have anyone that I felt close enough to actually share my issues or problems with. And, I ended up bottling in a lot of the pain and the frustration. Or I would just try to go and find, my own ways of being able to seek out that kind of therapy. And it was difficult. And this is, again, while I'm in school, and I love to learn. But that wasn't helping, as the esteem from the situation playing ball affected the way that I did everything else. It was different. So, once I realized that, it was, again, reality kind of set in. I can continue to do this, but if this becomes a problem, I have to have something. I have to have somewhere to go. Being connected into the will of God, I was able to find something that worked, right? And that was, as I got older, and that was, one outlet was being able to make music. Another outlet was, being able to, express how I felt. So I would write, and journal things, and that's always, a good thing too. being able to focus on, whatever you're feeling in the moment. Sometimes you can go back to it and look at it and see that there are things that, you could do different. You might be able to see something that you might not have caught in the moment. Sometimes we it's like looking for something that you lost. When we're looking for this thing and we're frantically just all over the place, we're looking through things, we're tearing our place up, looking for whatever it is we're looking for. If we don't find it, it kind of bothers us. But we could find ourselves in a moment where we're not looking for the thing, and it might be in the very place that we were looking, but we just so happen to overlook it. Realistically, that kind of thing happens. And, sometimes finding that moment of clarity can be the same, right? And, the other thing I talked about, not having, I didn't have a support system, which was unfortunate, but having a support system is always nice, right? Proverbs 17:17 tells us that a friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity, right? So we have people in our corner that can help us out, someone that can encourage us and uplift us when we're feeling down, right? And then we have someone that can help us navigate through what we're dealing with, whether they can empathize with us because they're experiencing something the same, or they can sympathize with us because they understand that this thing is disappointing and we're looking for an opportunity to become, better. And they'll help us navigate through this and be, look at and find things that maybe we'll miss, or give us a fresh perspective in a way that, maybe we might have overlooked, or, whatever the case may be. I've been in situations like that, being in the military, where I've been able to sit down and kind of talk some things through, and then kind of find out, oh, well, I didn't realize this, or I didn't consider this. And, it comes with that territory. And you're like, okay, cool, got it. And you're able to move forward then from that place. And it's awesome. We have to, and again, bear that in mind, right? Because you never know. They might be able to open a door to something completely unexpected. Speaking of, being able to bring something out completely unexpected, we can find ourselves embracing in something unexpected, right? Disappointment can lead us, to an unexpected or even a better opportunity. And I'll put it this way. And again, the better, just because it's unexpected or, it seems better, doesn't always mean that it's going to be just a smooth sailing thing. It might be another preparation for something else. And I'll utilize that by talking about, my situation transitioning into school and then transitioning into the military. So when, I played my first year of collegiate basketball, it wasn't a great experience. It was fun, but because I was hurt for the most part, I didn't really get to play the way that I normally play, which is understandable. I get it, and I had to learn. But then, as I was, healing and recovering from all of this, I had opportunities to go and talk to coaches from different places who were giving me an opportunity to, be a part of their programs. And I'll never forget, I was actually eating some Chinese food. I had ordered Chinese food, and I got a fortune cookie, and the fortune cookie said that an interesting sports opportunity will be coming your way. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I held on to it because I'd never seen anything like that before. And sure enough, I got a phone call from the coach that I ended up playing for um, down in Arkansas, and he was on his way up to the area. They were actually playing 2 games in the area, and I was gonna come meet the guy, and I could come watch the team play, and I was going to eventually transfer into the school. So I got to meet the guy. I got to see some of the team. I ended up going to the wrong place, but I went back to I went back home, and I got to the school. I got myself kind of going and ready to have this opportunity to play, which was a great opportunity. It was an opportunity to continue my career and everything else, and it was through that that I was able to kind of solidify being more philanthropic, if you will, wanting to give back to the community and help people, find people, and cultivate people, and grow people, things of that sort, which was one of the opportunities that presented itself. But again, that situation, because of all of the struggles and the frustrations and the losing and everything else, it prepared me for being able to transition into the military, because it was a unique situation. It was something different, and building off of that opportunity was that unexpected transition into something that allowed me to place perspective on other things, right? It allowed me to walk away from the game and trying to make this thing that I enjoyed, more so my place of business, which, when you kind of, I know we oftentimes talk about that and doing that, and that's supposed to be the way to go about doing it. If you do something you love doing, you never work. And I get it, but sometimes the things that we love to do, or we might have the desire to do, might not be for us, right? And especially when we're talking about something in the long run. And I understand that. But it allowed me to really delve into finding other opportunities. Like I said, I was able to find, making music, which opened the door for creating this, the podcast, and, having ideas for building other opportunities that I'm hoping will come down the line soon. And, again, that was the beauty of being able to navigate through that kind of situation. And it all really came from, going into a situation not 100%, right? And that situation started, 5 or 6 months prior, somewhere else, because I was that dead set on trying to be a professional ball player. And if that doesn't happen, I don't think the rest of it happens the way that it happens. And it's powerful. We have to think about the power of faith and trusting in God's plan. And again, we might not realize that where we're going or what we're navigating ourselves into is preparing us for where we're going. But Romans 8:28 reminds us that all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord, and to them who are called according to his purpose. So as long as we understand that the opportunities and the situations presenting themselves as a result of whatever we're going through is there for us to become who God called us to be, we'll be comfortable knowing that God is aligning everything to be what we need it to be, if that makes sense. Right? And go back to, we can go back to a Joseph and look at, him being sold into slavery, and everything that he went through put him in a position to be who he was purposed to be. You look at a David, him being a shepherd and having to fight lions and tigers and bears, put him in a position where he learned how to, face giants, quite literally. You look at Paul. You're talking about a guy who, was a huge persecutor, and all in the name of God, and then turns around and he becomes the savior of the movement, if you will. Not necessarily savior, but he becomes the champion of the movement. And he's going and he's telling everybody, and he talks about how his life was transformed and changed as a result of an encounter with Jesus Christ. You talk about a guy like a Moses, who was born of the Hebrews and raised as an Egyptian, and found himself out in isolation and learning how to shepherd people by being a shepherd and taking care of his wife's father's sheep. All of these opportunities presenting themselves, and be surprised as to how those things can come about. One of my favorite artists in music is a pianist by the name of Ben Tankard. He's made music for a very, very long time, and one of the things that I like about his story is, in a similar fashion, he wanted to be a pro ball player. He played Division I basketball at Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman also produced a couple of my other favorite artists in the same, in the same genre, if you will. And here's a guy. He was, that was his destiny. He was going to go play ball. And while working out for one of the teams during, I think it was like their training camp, he hurts himself, and he ends up going to a church, and he gets ministered to, he gets his hands laid on him, and before you know it, he finds his calling, which is making music, and he's been making music ever since. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, that's something right here. This guy that he really wanted to do something amazing. He wanted to be something different, and him being found in this realm, being able to be influential and change the lives of millions of people, giving people opportunities to be able to create and worship and celebrate our glorious Heavenly Father, while being a producer, a composer, a writer, and all these other things, right? And along the lines of minister, right? And this coming from a setback of having that injury that happened to him, right? Just imagine if he doesn't have the injury, and let's say that his professional basketball career doesn't pan out the way that he wants it to. Does he still end up becoming the great musician that he is? Or was the opportunity there because he found himself in a position where he couldn't do what he wanted to? He had to allow himself to trust in God's plan, right? And we'll be surprised in looking at how opportunities like that can happen, and we have to be grateful for that. Right? We have to understand, we have to appreciate those gifts in the moments of disappointment, because we don't know why things are happening the way that they are, but we're also allowing ourselves to really appreciate, again, as Romans 8:28 says, all things working together for our good, right? Because we understand that God knows what we need better than we do, right? And cultivating that gratitude, even when we're going through, it allows us, one, to be able to repurpose, as we talked about earlier, our ability to see what we're dealing with and what we're going through, right? And two, it really can shift the perspective of what's really important. Similar to Ben Tanger, like I look at my situation and I think about it, like what if, I did decide I wanted to go play pro ball and, I never really got an opportunity to play overseas and maybe make a decent chunk of change. Does that mean that I failed? Do I still have the opportunity to join the military when I do meet some of the people that I've met? Do I still have the opportunity to have, certain benefits that I'm entitled to as a result of being in the military? Do I have an opportunity to go back to school? Do I even want to go back to school? Right? Do I find myself in a position where I find a new perspective or understanding in terms of God's will and purpose? Do I find myself connected back into the church again? All of these different things, right? If I'm that fixated or focused on that one thing, right, that could be what ends up, again, opening the door for me to see an opportunity that might have always been there. I just never recognized it. The prodigal son is a great example of this too, right? When he goes out and he becomes, a man on his own, and he goes out and he does everything that he does through all of the pains and the tests and the trials and the ups and the downs and everything else that he goes through, if he doesn't find himself, sitting in that slop, right? If he finds success, if he's able to sustain himself, does he recognize that his father still loves him? He has an opportunity to come home. Does he realize that, there's an opportunity for him to still learn and grow and cultivate? Or does he just gloat in the fact that, he did the right thing? Right? And sometimes we have to be, we have to look at that way and be gracious, because we never know, right? And, him maybe going out and finding that success, it might have led to his demise, right? We have to, we have to think about that too, right? And in a bigger picture, if you will, we have to bear in mind that we have to appreciate our journey more so than the destination, right? And appreciating the journey over the destination can lead to a lot more of a fulfilling life. I can attest to that in my own personal life. Once I learned to embrace the journey over the destination, things have changed in a major way. When I was younger, I was more fixated on trying to get to adulthood and trying to acquire the lifestyle and the material things. And, I was, even in chasing ministry, years prior, it was about having the church, right? The mega church or the big church or the nice church with the large number of members and all this other stuff, thinking that was the thing. But when we find out that it's all in the journey, right? The journey is the cultivation. The journey is really picking up the details and looking for, the things that are missing and hidden, looking for the things that, really matter, finding the things that really matter. We understand then that it's greater than trying to get to somewhere, right? And I know for a lot of us that kind of feels weird, because when it comes to the rest of our societal, expectations, we're looking to have those moments of arrival, right? When we go to school with the expectation that we get to this certain place and we're graduating. We go from kindergarten to 12th grade. you're now considered, a basic adult. You have the knowledge, be able to go out into the world, and you can function, and because you have basic understanding of things, and cool, you can go out and make a living doing whatever you want to do. If we go to college, the expectation is we'll be able to get a better job. And the higher the level of education, the more money you'll be able to get. And with each certification, we think that we've arrived somewhere, right? And one thing that I learned in that process is, you can have a degree, but when it comes to being in the workforce, they value work experience more so than they do the accolades. So if I'm putting all of my stock and emphasis on trying to arrive with all of these accolades and I'm being overlooked, then what was all of that arriving for, right? What was the destination for? I didn't appreciate what I was supposed to learn in the process of that journey. And sometimes even in the process of the journey, we might find something better. You think about some of the multi-millionaires and billionaires in society. A lot of them, may have taken an opportunity or a chance at, going into the normal process of things and finding an opportunity that really changes their lives. It happens. And that's, it's understandable. Psalms 118:21 says that I will give thanks unto thee, for thou hast answered me and art become my salvation. And again, if we're allowing ourselves to embrace the journey and not be so fixated on the destination to the point that we miss the details to the journey, we can, we'll see how, everything that we might have been asking for has been laid out accordingly. Sometimes we miss that, and we have to learn how to practice that type of gratitude, especially during those times that we call, ourselves disappointed, right? Sometimes, being able to focus on the positive, I can understand that too, but not just that, but, really being able to, understand why we're there. Right? Sometimes and again, in focusing on the destination, we might not be able to appreciate the journey. Right? And I'll kind of summarize all of that by utilizing my story again. When I talked about, losing that game in high school, I never thought about the possibility that I would ever be able to make up for that. I thought that was going to haunt me forever. I was going to have nightmares about it. I thought, I was a huge letdown. I thought my name would, I would never be able to have my name in the conversations and all that other stuff. But in all reality, what I was really being prepared for in, not just in that game, but in that entire season, because there was a lot that happened just during that season. It prepared me for understanding how to embrace real leadership, and not to say that, other places I didn't learn about leadership, but what made that situation as powerful as it was being able to understand what it was like to not, to be the guy that was overlooked, and to be the guy that his voice was quieted. And now I have an opportunity to speak. Now I have an opportunity to share. Not just share, but I'm also having an opportunity to be able to put things into their proper place. So now we can focus on the important things. Right? We're able to allow ourselves to align into one place. Right? That's the end journey of it all. Right? And looking back on it, that was the foundation for being able to formulate my ministry in the very beginning. I didn't realize that, looking back at it. Right, because up to that point, I had never really been in a position of leadership, right? Leading or controlling or, having the voice in that regard. And it just happenstance, right? I wasn't given this in the beginning, and that's what, and everything changed at that point. And because I was able to embrace it and take it on head on, it really made things different, and I'm grateful for it. I'm very grateful for it, because again, learning how to be the guy that didn't have a voice, now being able to take the voice of those that don't have a voice and be the voice for them, being able to be a liaison, something special. And when we think about what God wants us to do, right? When we're talking about intercession and speaking on behalf of other people, that's exactly what we're doing. They might not have a voice. We stand in their behalf. We stand in the gap for them, as Jesus stood in the gap for us, and allow ourselves to be able to help them and speak for them and to give them whatever it is that is needed for them to change or become better versions of themselves. It's an awesome experience, right? And again, we have to understand that when it comes to disappointment is real. It is what it is. But in seeing it, we can see that disappointment can be an opportunity for growth. Again, we have to allow ourselves an opportunity to process whatever we're looking at. Being able to, find resilience, right? Being able to understand what it is to rise up again, right? It's not just getting up and pretending as if everything is okay. It's allowing ourselves to, process through everything. Look at what happened, why it happened, right? So we don't make the same mistake again. Allowing ourselves to be able to find the lesson in whatever took place, right? So as we're preparing our mindsets, we're able to see opportunities for growth and opportunities for success and opportunities for something better in the process. Maybe that wall or that barrier might have been there not for us to try to get over, but for us to pivot, because we're supposed to go in a different direction, right? Being able to embrace whatever is coming our way in the journey, understanding that we might have, again, something in a different place, as long as we recognize that that's what it is, right? Going back to Romans 8:28, understanding that all things work together for the good of them that love God, right? And called according to his purpose, right? Sometimes we forget that part. And to them who are called according to his purpose, if we're tied to it and attached to his purpose, and we're finding ourselves lining up with what he says, then we'll find ourselves matched up appropriately, and we'll be able to go from there, right? Being able to be gracious, right? It's a good thing sometimes that we have the walls and the barriers, and we find ourselves with letdowns and disappointment, right? Because one, it lets us know we're doing something right. Two, it allows us to know that someone cares enough for us to ensure that we're going in the right direction. And three, we're now allowing ourselves an opportunity to use what we've learned to be able to share with someone else. That's being able to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, to subdue it, and to have that dominion. Dear Lord Heavenly Father, I thank you for today. I thank you for an opportunity to learn about learning through disappointment, finding opportunities through disappointment. I pray, Father, that we understand that, when it comes to aligning ourselves with your will and your purpose, everything that you bring to the table is for us to become who you've called us to be. I pray, Father, that we find ourselves open-minded and seeing each and every opportunity, we're able to embrace the journey, not just being fixated on the destination. I know for a lot of us, we get excited about the possibility of being able to get into heaven, missing that we have a responsibility here. Sometimes we allow ourselves to miss what you laid out for us. I pray, Father, that we don't miss those anymore. God, I pray that each and every experience that we go through on a day-to-day basis, we're able to take what is necessary for us to become who you've called us to be, and we implement those things. As your word says, the righteous can fall down 7 times but get back up again. And Father, I pray that we understand what it is to get back up again. And we don't find ourselves just getting up and pretending as if we didn't go through a struggle. But we actually take the time to learn and grasp whatever we needed to grasp. We can reframe whatever we experience, see it through a different lens. Pray, Father, that your will be done in each and every one of our lives. I thank you, Father. All these things we ask in your holy and heavenly name. Amen. I thank you guys just for taking the time to come out with us today and talking about, navigating through disappointment. Disappointment is always been one of those things that we've had a negative stigma on. But in all reality, these things can be seen as opportunities for growth, opportunities for change, opportunities for better. We just have to be open-minded enough to receive them. I pray you guys find your peace. I pray you find your success. I pray you find your purpose. I love you all. Until next time, this is the Rebuild Podcast. Peace.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Tune in weekly as we dive into topics such as finding your calling, overcoming obstacles, building resilience, and strengthening your relationship with God. If you're ready to embark on a transformative journey of faith and personal growth, then join us on the Rebuild Podcast. Together, let's build a solid foundation that aligns with God's will and leads us to a life of purpose and fulfillment.